Yes, we're on. Wow.
Yeah,
Hello
happy days.
again. We return. Uh, yes, we were having a few problems there with the internet. Hopefully it sticks up. Um, just gonna get comment section up here. Yes, but as we were saying before we were cut off, we're going to be chatting today about, does gear really matter, and do you need professional audio equipment to get good results? Are you ready, Graham?
I think so.
Are you buzzing?
I'm buzzed. Do you want me to start talking?
Yeah. Well, you were talking anyway because I ended up cutting you off because the stream was cacking out. So work away.
Do you want to know a fun secret?
Wow.
It's doing it again,
Oh
but we'll
no.
crack on anyway.
Okay.
So we'll just have to leave each other like a good bit of space when we finish talking, so that we don't start talking over each other.
That's okay.
Um, yeah. So how important's gear for getting the sound you want? It's kind of a subjective question, and you kind of have to frame it as in what you want from
Yes.
your gear. And there's a couple of different ways we can do that. I've sort of been thinking about album production or song production and music production because that's kind of what's hitting quite close to home for me at the minute.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to kind of think about how important gear is to getting the kind of sound that I and many other people want to achieve, which is like a professional big sound on like a relatively small moderate budget. And I was wondering what you think on the matter, because I personally think it's very possible to get a very big commercial professional sound on a fairly small budget,
Yeah.
but it can be difficult to get certain particular professional commercial sound on a small budget.
Yeah, well, as you've heard from actually a few people that have released stuff recently, it is actually very easy to get, yeah, fairly good, as you say, commercial quality stuff. From being in your bedroom and stuff like that, people have managed it quite well, and what they have been doing has worked out well. Um, but there's a few downfalls that you hear in a lot of recordings. Uh, kind of like vocal sounds. Obviously, if there's any sort of drums and stuff like that, I think that's a big part of it. For me, drums mix up a lot of the sound of an actual track, and if the drums aren't good, it can let the track down very big, and
Yeah.
it does cost a good bit of money to pay for good quality VSTs, and a lot of people don't have that money.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's the big thing that lets people down. I think knowing even how to get good sound quality out of what you have, VST wise, is a big thing as well. A lot of people buy and spend maybe a few pound on a VST or something like that, and they actually don't know how to use it and get a good quality sound out of it. So they end up not being able to work with it then, and it lets the track down. But it seems to be especially in drums more than anything, to be honest. Um, that's sort of my opinion on it. That, well, the biggest, and vocals as well. Vocals are very hard to get that sort of real professional commercial sort of vocal sound in a recording at home. It's very hard to get unless you have something of sort of like a higher quality mic or something like that. But like there is no reason that you can't get fairly close enough, and a lot of people have got quite close to it, and
Yeah.
on a very small budget as well.
Yeah, and I agree with you actually on the drums and the vocals, because I feel the reason for that is because they're both very nuanced things that require like the as sound sources themselves, they require high quality, well, not necessarily high quality, but they require something to be able to capture a certain amount of fidelity. I mean, like if you've got a guitar, say for example, you can layer quite a lot in order to get the kind of sound that you want. It's not something that has to stand alone. Whereas when you're multi-tracking drums, or even if you're going for like a one microphone or two microphone setup with drums,
Yeah,
or you're recording vocals, you can layer vocals to an extent, but it's not going to be the kind of like layering that you can do with other instruments, and they'll have to kind of stand alone. And that's where
yeah.
cheaper equipment can kind of show its flaws. But there are ways around that
Mm-hmm.
to
Oh,
an extent. I mean, if
yeah,
you take, say, Billie Eilish and her Grammy winning hilariously good album, in terms of production, at least anyway, they had like I looked at some of the gear they had earlier on, produced it in Logic, had like a Universal Audio Apollo 8 interface, which is fairly like it's not like super budget, but it's fairly budget,
yeah. I
and
think that
some
was the most
pretty cheap
expensive
monitors
thing they
with
had.
the interface.
Yeah,
And yeah, all for under a grand, I believe, or just about a grand. And they got around the drum thing pretty handy. I mean, the whole album's pretty sample based and like electronic, like in the kind of genre of like electronically produced beats, so to speak.
yeah,
But they got around that by making sure that well, the sample thing's cool. I mean, if you've watched any interviews with Phineas, like he uses a lot of his own samples. He just records things around the house and interesting things outside that he finds cool,
yeah,
and that can help you get around
yeah. It can.
the
You
problem
see,
of not having.
you do see quite a lot of people actually doing that, where they're just getting samples. They maybe have a some sort of a sampler, or maybe they're just doing it completely freehand, where they're just copying and pasting things into the actual session. But you do see a lot of people doing that, and I'm really bad at it. But you can get really, really cool, especially for the type of music that she does. You can get really, really cool results.
Yeah, and they layered the vocals pretty substantially as well throughout the album.
Yeah, I actually think I listened to a couple of songs in that album the other day for the first time on headphones, and some of the sounds are absolutely mental that are going on.
Yeah, it's crazy, and the budget was pretty low, so it is possible there just might be some concessions that you have to make with regards to what you can do. I mean, if that album had required like a full drum kit recorded in a studio environment, it wouldn't have been possible with the setup that they had.
And probably just wouldn't have sounded right either.
No, true, but that's the genre, isn't it? But I think I guess what I'm trying to get at is that if you've got a certain thing in mind, like if you're trying to produce like a rock record and you want it to be like commercial standard, you're gonna find that difficult with a 100 quid interface with two inputs and
Yeah,
like stock plugins.
yeah. Now, if you're a solo artist and maybe you have something half decent and stuff like that, you could maybe make it work. Like, but if you're in a band and there's 4 or 5 and you're trying to record an album, you're probably not gonna. Yeah, you're probably not gonna get something anything decent unless you have at least a bigger interface with more inputs and stuff like that.
True. So I guess in that sense, gear does matter.
Yes, I think it goes back around to what we're saying about it matters depending on your situation.
Yes, you need to decide what it is you want to achieve,
Yeah,
and then you can then figure out just exactly how important
yeah,
gear is.
because um, there's ways around things. Uh,
Yeah.
you can. This is probably where we're gonna start touching on how you can jerry rig things. There is ways to take what you have and make it work as best as you can
Yeah.
and get better results out of it. One like you see a lot of people. Well, let's go back to uh, let's go back to the our deep dark childhood, Graham. Whenever we were uh, had no money and were trying our best to record EPs and singles and stuff with the most minimal gear ever.
Yeah.
Uh, well, you, I know for a fact, recorded a song, that song Tranquility, using
Yeah.
a USB rock rock band microphone, was it?
Yeah, it
Like,
was a rock band microphone.
and it's just a USB microphone that you plugged into your computer and just used that way.
Yeah. Yeah, straight into Audacity.
Audacity. There,
Yeah.
Audacity is free, completely free to use, and if you're looking to get started out, it is really, really handy. Uh, but that's the kind of thing you can do. You can almost because what I actually got an idea from you doing that was I had it's not Rock Band. It was something that came after Rock Band. Can't remember what it was, but you basically it was the one that they brought out where you actually played your instrument. You actually plugged your instrument into the console and played it.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
even remember what it is, but
Is it Rocksmith?
Rocksmith, yes. And with Rocksmith, you had it was basically was a quarter-inch jack to USB, and it
Yeah.
converted. It was basically the same concept of a USB microphone, except it was just like DI straight in. And I used to use that on a laptop and just use it, plug it straight in, and mess around with built-in VST plugins and whatever I had at the time. Probably Cubase like 4 or something like that. And you can get good. It was great for recording demos and stuff like that. There was no harm in it at all. But
Yeah.
there is very cheap USB microphones that you can buy, and
Yeah.
you can buy them off Amazon for 10-20 quid, like, and you know you just plug them straight into your laptop and you can record straight onto a DAW.
Yeah.
And
And
it
you're flying really at that stage. Like once you get it
yeah,
into the DAW, you have a world of opportunity in the form of VSTs
it all gets
to
hard when you
twist and tweak.
all gets hard when you hit the big red button.
Yeah, that's red light fever is a topic for another day. That's that you could do. You could do a whole vlog on red light fever, man.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. So that the whole USB thing and the kind of the low budget vibe kind of points me in the direction of what if you want if the hold on, what way do I say this? Like to get past the whole low budget thing,
Yes.
you can kind of have an intentionally lo-fi aesthetic that works out quite nice.
Yeah,
And I don't mean have something that sounds bad on purpose.
but
But like if you take,
working with the bad
uh,
sound.
well, yeah, well if you take like Bon Iver had an album and I can't remember what it's called, but it's got a girl's name in it.
Okay.
And in producing the album, he wanted to get away from everything, so he just went out and he like rented this cabin in the middle of the forest or something like that, or way out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And he like wrote and recorded the whole album there with like basically no equipment, and it's like acoustic guitar and vocals and some other stuff layered over the top. It's heavy on the reverb and it's gorgeous. It's
Gorgeous.
produced really, 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 really nicely, and it cost like a bar rent in the cottage. I mean, I'm not suggesting anybody have to go rent a cottage in the middle of the forest in order to
But
produce
yeah,
this album, but like,
rent one.
yeah, but rent one and then
Yeah.
let us come and record at it. Um, yeah, like that cost him nothing
Yeah.
to produce, and it sounds gorgeous. It rivals like plenty of other like City and Color and other sort of one man acoustic kind of folky stuff.
Yeah. Oh well, like it. One thing I would say, one just it's just something that popped in my head there, and it's if you do have like a one channel interface or a two channel interface or something like that, and you have very little. Basically, you're going to start out, and maybe you've got a bit of money set aside for buying a couple of things. Uh, I would always suggest trying to record things with microphones rather than like DI in it, especially if it's that kind of like acoustic music or there's any sort of acoustic stuff going on in it. Even if it is electric guitar, even miking up your amp always works out better than DI in it, because to get good quality DI tracks, you kind of need to spend money in good quality stuff. There needs to be
Yeah.
something that's making that better. You need your VSTs, and you need some sort of uh, thing to take in impulse responses and to actually make it sound like it's in a room with a microphone up to it and all this kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
that's where the money starts coming into it. And I would always urge people to uh, come and try and do it with a microphone before anything, even if it costs you. Look, you can buy a second hand one of these, or a 58 or 57 or something like that for 50 quid or 40 quid or something. So you may as well spend a bit of money on that to get your quality up that amount that you're going to be getting.
Well, that's actually funny. I was just going to ask you that when you said about the microphone thing, and then you kind of handed it to me when you pointed at this one. Would you would you say that it's better to use a dynamic microphone if that's all you have to record an acoustic guitar instead of a DI?
Yeah.
Because I've had very, very poor results with that in
Well,
my time and always ended up back at the DI. Like even recently when we've got a video coming out on Friday that we'll probably mention at the end, but I had to send Oren some tracks for that, and I ended up recording the acoustic DI'd
okay, yeah.
because I really didn't like what I was getting out of the dynamic microphone. Is that my problem with placement,
That's
or
your
is it the
problem.
acoustic or the room? Yep.
You're just a mm, you're just I don't know. Don't even know what to say about you anymore. No,
Just hand me the grey back.
no. I think that's more like room orientated. I think. I think it's
Okay, yeah.
you know if I'm trying to give advice to you and someone else that's maybe in the same situation, it would be try different places in the room. Sort of go
Yeah.
round the room and set play guitar in different parts of the room until you get a better sound, because just sitting sort of up by a computer or something and going, yeah, dead on, you know it might not be the best place for that recording to happen,
Yeah.
and your room might not just sound nice for that kind of thing. But if you have a dynamic microphone, I would always suggest, yeah, if you're lucky to have a two channel interface, try both, try blend them together,
Yeah.
try and maybe push the microphone further back and DI it as well. Use the DI as the main sort of attack and presence and stuff of the track, and
Yeah.
the body, and then use the microphone to actually give it some air and some space and stuff like that.
Cool. That's actually helpful. You'd think that I would have done that because I used to do that all the time, but apparently I've forgotten how to do everything. So that's handy.
I
In
love. Sorry, I love the sound of like a DI and a mic and an acoustic. Just DI sounds like shit just on its own, unfortunately, unless you have half decent plugins to vamp it up. But when you have both going on, you can get a really nice sort of combination of the two, especially like a space pair and a DI or something like that.
yeah. So drums actually, just while we're on this, I kind of like this train of thought. Drums. I've got two inputs
Yes.
and two microphones. Let's just say two. Let's say one microphone and one input, and then go for two, because I don't want to stretch into three and four, because then you're getting to the point where like you could basically mic up most of the kit and be fine. Uh, let's say I've got one microphone and then two. If I had two, I'd probably go either overhead and behind me or a space pair. What would your thoughts be? I'm talking dynamic here now as well, because I don't want to say that we've got. Well, good. You know what? Right, let's go two dynamic, one condenser, and then one dynamic, and then one condenser on its own.
Well,
Like really quickly, just run through those, because that's all the combinations I can think of.
hmm, if you have one of my favorite techniques for one microphone, it will always be under the ride cymbal, pointing, like if you can imagine the kick drum and the ride cymbal, it's under the ride cymbal, sort of facing towards the snare, with the kick drum obviously going to be in its path as well.
Yep.
And it's very nice for, I think, mainly because it's underneath everything and beside the kick drum. It seems to pick up quite a lot of like the transients from the cymbals and stuff like that, and all the transient hits from your, mainly your kick and your snare. It's not so great in your toms and stuff, but
Yeah.
for your kick and snare and cymbals, it's really great for picking up a full sort of all around kind of sound. Um,
Yeah.
it's probably one of the go tos that I would do. I did that track with just the cover track with Matty and Kieran from Dyad and William from Super Soaker, and we were recording the drums, and all Kieran actually had was like a Zoom dictaphone recorder type thing. That's all he had,
Yeah.
and he set it underneath the ride cymbal, pointing at the snare, and just recorded it, and it sounded mighty, sounded great. That would be probably my go-to for one microphone drum setup.
Yeah.
R- Either or condenser will be better.
Yeah. Be
Uh,
ideal, but
Picks up will be far better for the transients and stuff. If you have a dynamic, you have a dynamic. It's probably the first place I go to point a microphone. If you have two, now that's when things get a bit different. Uh, if you want a full stereo sound to the kit, a space pair would be what I'd normally go for. Just two over the top,
yeah,
pointing down.
that'd be my go-to probably if I only have the two.
Uh, if but the problem with that is it give you a lot of doesn't give you a lot of stuff going on with a kick drum and snare and stuff like that. Leaves them
Yeah, it's
very
not.
bare.
Yeah.
So another one would be, I think it's called like, mm,
You're talking about the one that's like a name of a person, aren't you?
is it? Uh, I don't know if I'm actually talking about the Glenn Jones. I'm not too sure.
Uh-huh.
But what I get a lot of success out of is one, once again under the ride cymbal pointing at the snare, but then
Yeah.
another one behind,
Above and
above,
behind. Yeah.
and pointing down. I think that's
Yeah.
what the Glenn Jones is.
I think it
Uh,
is as well, but I don't want to get shouted at by any past tutors, so I'm gonna let that.
which hopefully Paddy Craig will come on here and correct us and give us a distinction for our vlog. Uh, yeah, and that's a really good one to use. Once again, either or. What I think what helps a lot if you have two microphones is having, especially if you're doing the two stereo overheads, is if you have two of the same microphones, it just makes
Well,
sort
yeah,
of
yeah,
you don't need it necessarily. I've heard people say that they prefer not to use the same microphone for stereo overheads, which doesn't really compute in my head, because then how are you trying to get some sort of a stereo? I don't know. Uh,
yeah. Well,
what each to their own, but I would probably say try and get the same microphones. If you don't, it doesn't matter. You're doing this on a budget. or you're trying to do it as low as you can. So work with what you got. If you have two different microphones, you have two different microphones. I'd probably say the stereo one up above, overhead, pointing down to pick up quite a lot of the transients from all the cymbals and your snare and toms and everything shooting back. And then
Yeah.
the one underneath could be your dynamic microphone, a little bit smoother for all the stuff going on down there.
Yeah.
And yeah, was that it?
Yeah. Yeah,
There's no
that
point
that
going
covers it,
really
yeah.
anymore, is there?
No, that covers it. No, I just wanted to make sure that we're microphone inclusive because not everyone has condensers, and
Yeah, I'm just saying there's
a lot of people just buy 57s because they,
because
because they think they
57
should or
is
whatever.
just
Because 50 a workhorse of a microphone.
yeah. I love all like the memes and the videos of like the 57 like crushed or something underneath the like a truck ran over it and it's like still works, still grand.
Yeah.
I actually seen a guy that used to go to Southern Regional College in Armagh. I follow him on Instagram and he does a lot of turn work and he actually uploaded a photo of a 57 that got must have been ran over or I think a forklift or something went over it while they were doing something and it still worked. And I mean, this thing was like flat like a pancake, like the head of it. The body and everything was intact, but the head was more or less flat.
Insane.
Insane. Sorry, I'm just saying there's a couple of people uh, watching, so I'm just gonna say if anyone has any questions, fire them in because we will hopefully answer them soon. Well, towards the
Yes,
end or in the middle of it.
for the love of
Please.
God, give us direction, please.
Please ask us questions.
uh, I think we had like a not necessarily a question earlier on, but I mentioned it to you just before we started. Leah Jordan commented about live streams.
Leah
I need to check
Jordan.
and see what that was.
Where's she at? Leah Jordan's probably not even watching.
Well,
Um.
we may do our duty and
Oh, was it that
see
was
if
an
we can
Instagram,
provide some
wasn't it?
sort of insight. Yes, I want a live stream, but I don't want to fork out money for a video capture card.
Aha. Very good. So we actually did another video before. It was basically how to set up well basically how to get better sort of video and stuff when obviously we're all doing live streams and stuff like that while we're in lay lockdown. So we did briefly go over. We went over quite a lot in that video, so we didn't actually spend too long talking about one thing because we didn't, really want to because
It wouldn't be like us, would it?
wouldn't be like us.
Wouldn't be like us. Just skip
So
around.
so yeah, there's a few ways around that, Leah. Uh, Now, the first one would be knowing what camera you actually have. So it would be easier for me to know if I knew what camera you had. But I actually don't have a capture card. This is just my webcam, but I don't have a capture card for my camera. But I am still getting it into the likes of OBS and stuff like that. And it's handy enough done. There's just a here's this word again. There's just a way to jerry rig it. um, look into if you have a Canon, especially Canon cameras have a thing on it called. I'm not going to lie to you, so I'm going to go look at it here. It's called EOS Utility, and it's basically a thing that lets you download all your stuff off your camera and all that kind of stuff. Basically lets you work with your uh, basically lets you remotely control your camera through USB. Some cameras, if you have more expensive cameras, you can do it through Wi-Fi, which is really cool. But it has a thing on it called live view mode. So you can actually go onto live view mode, and I'll maybe actually do another video separately in this later. But to briefly describe it, you go into the live view mode and you basically full screen that bad boy, get on over to OBS and do a window capture on OBS, and basically it'll take that whole window. Basically, what's going on here, you can see me and Graham over there. This is just a Zoom call, but I've taken two windows, captured them, and basically chopped them down, basically cropped them, and same with everything else going on in this. But you basically do that. You crop everything else in that window out apart from the live viewfind of your camera, and crop it all down, pull it out on OBS, and there you have it. It'll not be, now I have noticed, because you're obviously cropping it and then stretching it, you're not going to get like bang on your 1080p. It's going to be a little bit condensed, but it's as damn near close as you get for free. But yeah, as I said, I'll probably do another video on that separately. But hopefully that helped, Leah. And if there's no more questions in, so what were we chatting about there before Leah distracted us?
I think we were talking. I think I know I was methodically moving through common instruments with regards to
Yes.
what you can do to kind of get a better sound out of them.
Yeah.
Uh, I think I touched briefly on the concept of guitar earlier, and you also did with try not to DI it. If you've got an amp and a microphone, try to mic it up. It'll just sound better.
Yes.
Um,
Then we touched on
you
drums and
can
stuff.
layer. We touched on drums as well. Uh,
Layer, layer, layer.
yeah, when it comes to guitar, especially, like the more you can layer, and
Yeah.
you can always cut these away later on if they don't suit. But the more layers you can add, the better. Well, the fatter your sound's going to be, the more nuance it's going to have as well, just because of the natural time and inconsistencies that you'll have when you layer over the top or something. Like
Listen
as
to
much as you can do that.
listen to Led Zeppelin. They literally just like layered over guitars, but each guitar was like semitones tuned out and just made this like crazy fat guitar sound. And it's basically the same concept. You're just layering over guitars on top of each other.
Yeah,
Yes, that like obviously it'll bring in problems with harmonics and stuff, but it's so easy to take them out and make a really like smooth it out and make a really really big guitar sound. Like most
yeah,
bands when they come into the studio, rock bands and stuff like that, minimum two guitar tracks, minimum, and that's if there's one guitar
yeah,
player. If there's two guitar players, we're probably looking at four tracks, guitar tracks.
yeah.
Make it thick, man.
Thick with at least two C's. If there's two guitar players, four C's.
Oh,
um,
bangers today, Graham. Graham is coming out
yeah, I
with
know they're just flying out of me. I think at the risk of sounding dismissive, I think instead of us spending forever going through every single little thing you can do, I think one thing immediately that will be fantastic return for very little effort in making things sound more professional is doing a little bit of research into some easy, like, audio engineering stuff, like just doing a bit of like looking at some YouTube videos about how to EQ, how to use a compressor, how to use common effects in VSTs, so that you can get more out of what you're recording into. Like,
yeah,
where
like
I don't mean go do a course in music technology, but just like learning how to use the EQ that comes with your DAW will improve what you
yeah,
have tenfold.
yeah. Like EQ is your strongest weapon. It is like
Yep.
well, before we get on to dynamics and all that kind of stuff, EQ is your strongest weapon, especially in making good mixes and stuff like that. You cannot get, especially if you have lots of instruments, it's so hard to make things sit in a mix. if you don't know how to EQ properly. Yeah, and probably another thing I'd say is check out a few. There's lots of free plugins and VSTs and stuff you can get, especially well, like Reaper and stuff. Reaper have their own free stuff, and most of it
Yeah.
is quite good, and it's all worth looking into. You can also, if you want to buy plugins, most people like Waves and stuff have discounts on their stuff all the time, and you can normally pick up stuff fairly cheap. And I would definitely advise everyone to look into it.
Yeah, because they're lifesavers, but it's it's like you said, you have to know how to use them. Don't just go like a plugin's not just gonna like fix it. Like don't just go be like, oh well,
I
Oren
need to
said I should buy
spend
waves.
I need to spend £300 on a plugin to make my track sound good. That's no, that's
No,
not
man.
just that won't help. You know it. The plugin will obviously help, but if you do not know how to use it, where are you going?
Yeah, it's like buying like a really, really expensive steak and then like dropping it in some boiling water and walking away for 20 minutes. Like it's still gonna taste rotten. Like it's gonna be terrible.
Yeah.
It's the
Uh,
same thing with plugins. If you don't know how to use it, buying like a set of plugins for 300 quid and then running around and just like whacking up the high end on your EQ and making it all squeal is just it's still not gonna make it good, you know?
no, check out a few. Well, on that, ch- keep an eye out for some of our videos. We're planning on
Yeah.
doing like we won't get sidetracked here, but we're planning on doing sort of like a series of videos of mixing and stuff. So, uh, sorry, I just seen a comment that came in there from Nathan Rehill saying "fat" with a capital P. But yes, we're we're planning on doing a series of videos on mixing and stuff like that. So keep an eye on our Facebook and stuff. And just while we're on that as well, if you're watching on Facebook or even if you're on YouTube, head on over to our YouTube. It's / Apex Pickups. Because we can't change it, but it's youtube.com / Apex Pickups. And please like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot, and we're trying to build our YouTube community. So, thank you very much. But yes, sitting down, even just for a few hours of the day, and just working on maybe your own tracks, just working on it, looking at a few YouTube videos to see how to do a bit of EQ and how to properly put on like compression, how to properly use EQ creatively, and how to use other built-in plugins that you get with most DAWs, how to use them properly.
Yeah.
It'll
Because that's
well,
where you'll get the most mileage.
yeah, it'll make serious difference to your tracks. And honestly, it's we've talked about sort of different ways of how to record stuff and all that kind of crack. Uh, I shouldn't have this comment section beside me. It's so bad. Um, but if you don't know how to actually basically what you're aiming for and how to get there, then I honestly think you should probably just stop, chill out, and just get a cup of tea and sit down and watch a few YouTube videos. Fire it up on the big screen in your living room if you want. Just do a bit of learning, and it
Yeah.
will help. It'll help so much. There's a lot of people that just kind of, as we were saying before, just fire stuff on and just now messing about is a big thing to mess about to you find out how to
Yeah.
get where you need to go, but also kind of knowing things like uh, guitar tracks and stuff like that have a lot of unnecessary low end in them. Taking that out is it cleans up a mix like mad, and like even just knowing things like that is really, really handy to get cleaner mixes and a lot better sound of your track.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sweet.
sorry. Just talked
Um,
for about 90 mile an hour flat out there and just dried my throat out. Near died. Nathan Rehill, I came to see Pete and just see these boys. Pete's downstairs somewhere barking. He's being now. Sorry, I've no words that I can say on live stream about Pete. But hello, Nathan. Anyway, um, yeah, I think as we're going around talking about different ways of recording and stuff like that, and maybe we've got a little bit far away from the gear as well.
yeah, a bit bogged down. Yeah.
Yeah, we've gone a bit side roads on it, but I was gonna touch there a little bit on when we were talking about mixing and stuff, but actually talk about the listening side of things when you're doing your own home mixes and stuff. A big part of it as well is being able to hear it back properly.
Yeah.
Uh, so doing it on your laptop speakers and stuff like that, because a lot of people are working on laptops, it can actually it can probably well, you're not hearing anything really on a laptop speaker. You're not hearing what you're meant to be hearing.
Yeah.
Even if you have computer speakers or something, that's at least one better step. Now, for years, I was basically mixing on a hi-fi. Now it was a fairly decent Sony hi-fi with fairly decent speakers and stuff on it. Something like that. That's quite, you know, well, I say it was inexpensive. I don't even know how much it was. Don't even think it belonged to me. I think it belonged to my parents. But something like that that some people might still have in their house, a hi-fi or something, is a great way to be able to hear. I like mixing on speakers. I don't know if that's just me, but it's a good way to have something to actually push the sound out and hear it properly. There's other inexpensive studio monitors that you can buy, like Behringer's ones. Can't even mind what they're called now. But there's an Alesis makes some very cheap ones and stuff as well. Uh, Kirk's, the ones I'm using here, in my home studio, bedroom. But that for me, the hi-fi was great whenever I got it like hooked up. It's fairly easy to hook up. You've normally got like a like an audio in or something on your hi-fi or something like that you can just take out of your interface and put it in there, some sort of connectors or something like that, and it it gives you at least gives you the idea of what it's going to sound like on a hi-fi, what someone's going to hear coming through a hi-fi as close as possible anyway.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, what I then was doing for a long time as well was mixing on headphones. And that's
Yes.
probably once again another cheaper option than obviously picking up a secondhand hi fi or something like that. Headphones
Yeah.
are, oh my God, Graham, we're wearing the same headphones.
Yeah, and I clocked that about 2 minutes ago. We're wearing the exact same set of headphones.
So these are Audio Technica.
Yeah.
AT 50s or something.
Yeah, AT or AH or something like that. I can't remember.
I can't remember. Uh, he's just going to look at.
ATHM50.
Yes, we were both right.
Yeah.
So these are actually quite cheap now, I think.
Yeah, they're fairly inexpensive. I think they're like 80, 90 quid now. Anyway.
Yeah, and you can buy the model down from them for about 40, 50 quid. Uh, and they are fantastic modern headphones and great for
Yeah.
mixing on, great for listening to music. They're fantastic. But once again, you can always buy cheaper.
Oh yeah.
You can always go for cheaper headphones. Oh, there's Pete now. You can always hear. You can always buy cheaper headphones. There's a model in my head that I can't remember right now, but Sennheiser make them, and
I knew you were gonna say Sennheiser. I knew that it
it's
was
because
them ones.
you go to any school, college,
Yeah,
anything, and
there've
they
about a
always
hundred of
have
them.
them. Yeah, and like
Yeah,
most people steal them. But you can buy
yeah,
them from Argos 20 quid or something like that, or maybe even
yeah. twenty
less.
bucks usually. Yeah,
And they're decent wee headphones for mixing on, and as
yeah,
far as I remember, they're closed back and stuff like that, so they work quite well for keeping sound out.
yeah,
And if you're looking to record with them on, keeps the click and stuff in, especially if you're recording with a mic and all that kind of crack. So
yeah,
yeah, they actually are quite good. Uh, I would advise people to look into probably headphones before speakers and stuff like that, because you're gonna need headphones for recording vocals anyway.
yeah.
They're probably the best option to go for. Um,
I tend to do them like the fair majority of my mixing on headphones. Like the bulk of the, yeah, I kind of, I guess you could call it the busy work of mixing, but like, you know yourself, the like the initial stages. I tend to do quite a lot of it then, and then I'll go to some speakers because I don't have any, but if I had speakers, I would use them towards the end.
so you're an oddball.
Yeah, I'm a bit weird when it comes to that, but it is possible, is what I mean.
Oh
Like
yeah,
it's not.
no, they're like that is completely down to the person. Some people swear by
Yeah,
just mixing on headphones, and they think it's the best way to get really detailed. Now, headphones are great. I would normally use them if I'm listening for things like doing a lot of EQing or something like that, or whatever. But I'd probably prefer speakers. But no, headphones are a great investment if you're doing
yeah.
all this kind of stuff at home.
What are you
Uh,
looking for in a headphone, Oren? Just so we're not throwing out random names.
what am I
With for
looking for?
monitoring, close
Uh,
back, fairly flat response if you can get it,
yeah, you're never
which you can
gonna.
find out either.
Yeah, you're never
It's not
gonna
going to be
get
ever flat, but
no. Uh, but you're don't buy Beats.
nope.
Nah, no, do not buy Beats. They are
Don't buy a bass boosted headphone. Basically,
yeah. Most headphones are made for listening purposes. You want to look at headphones that are monitoring headphones, because listening headphones have built-in EQ boosts and all that kind of stuff in them, and that's what you don't want. Yes, all headphones will sound different because they're all made
yeah,
differently and they all have different frequency responses, but you specifically want to avoid headphones that are specifically boosting certain frequencies. Just because that's not what you want, man. Yeah, close back headphones as well. Um, uh, flat response, close back headphones, and comfortable because you're probably going to be
yeah. It
wearing
was,
them
it
for
was
a long
literally
time.
yeah. Gotta gotta make sure that you're not going to be like irritating your head after wearing them for 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, that's probably my biggest beef with headphones is when you wear them for like we've been on here for 49 minutes and
Yeah,
wearing these headphones, and we were on for about half an hour before that, so my head's kind of feeling a bit squashed.
yeah,
It's just, I think it's just weird as well wearing headphones. You get this weird sensation wearing them. Just hate because it's like pushing your head voice in. It's keeping things out. You know that you're not hearing properly, and it just makes you feel a bit weird.
yeah,
But apart from that, no. If you've got comfortable headphones that are as close to flat as you can, and they're closed back, you're probably on that winner.
yeah.
Um, apart from, so yeah, we went through recording and stuff at home, we obviously you're mixing and you're monitoring. Don't really want to start talking about mastering because if you're mastering at home,
It's
you're probably not going to be actually mastering. You're just turning it up
yeah, I guess
really
it's
loud.
yeah, I guess it strays even further away from the whole notion of whether gear is important as
Yeah.
well.
Well, my first my first recording setup was a hi-fi with a Zoom bass pedal on my bass going into the audio input on the hi-fi and recording it on to tape on the actual hi-fi. That was my first recording setup, and that still today is 100% possible. There's still tape recorders, there's still all that kind of stuff. You can get little porta studios and stuff still, and they're great for the money. Uh, then after that, I went on to using a friend of mine's Tascam porta studio, and it was like a 24 channel porta studio. You remember that?
Yes, I remember that.
This thing was about this size, like it was huge, like.
It
But
was a chunky boy.
it was great. It was, and to be honest, the thing went everywhere with me. Like it, from my house to band practices and just all around the place with, and it was great. It was a fantastic piece of kit. But you can still buy things like that for about £200, and that's basically your entire setup in a box, and it's quite cool. Some of them actually come with built-in microphones or like gooseneck microphones and stuff with them and all, which is quite cool. But yeah, then after that, I ventured into the glorious world of digital, uh, and for the life of me, couldn't understand what was going on. It was so confusing to me. And I actually ventured into it. What I was doing was recording on the Porta Studio, exporting the audio tracks from it onto the laptop, and mixing with Adobe Audition that I did not illegally download.
No,
Not at all. I
no,
actually didn't.
we don't condone that.
I swear to God, I didn't. Someone else did. But uh, I was like 14 or something. But it was interesting to see what it could do. And then after that, it was what Cubase 4 or 5 or something like that, and then the rest is history. On from that till what I'm doing now with, well, I think I've got Cubase flipping 8 or 9 or something now, and thinking
Yeah,
about upgrading to 11. But uh, what I use for a long time is what I actually have here is the Tascam US 1800, which isn't big bucks. The new version of it, anyway, isn't big bucks. It's like £200 or something, which isn't a
yeah,
lot of money really. But that's you have your 10 analog preamps in it, and you have 14 actual analog inputs. You got your 10 preamps and your 4 just line ins, and then you have like 4 line outs and stuff like that. And it is a fantastic interface for the money. I think they go second hand now for about 80, £100 or something like that. But lovely clean preamps and stuff on it, and
yeah,
it is quite nice. Wouldn't be like the most fantastic thing for uh, a audio to digital conversion, but apart from that, it's great because it's kind of capped at USB 2, but I think the new one's
yeah.
USB 3. But no, it's a great interface. And then in the studio, I'm using the QU16 by Alan Heath. So went from a hi-fi all the way to the Alan Heath QU. But from using all that kind of stuff, I still get really, really good results. Actually, in between somewhere there, I had a two-channel interface that someone else has at the minute landing because they need to record during Crackdown. But they having that at home was really cool, and I got some really, really cool results out of that. Just going into Cubase and using one or two microphones, and it was really fun as well because it made you think a lot as well. It made you kind of, right, I've only got two microphones, two inputs. What am I going to do here? And I recorded some really cool stuff on that, and I miss being that sort of interesting and being able to do stuff like that. But if we're gonna start, if we're gonna try and round this up and say, does gear matter? I think we kind of, well, you kind of hit the nail on the head at the very start when you said that it depends on your situation. If you're a rock band looking to record your rock band, you're going to need more equipment and
Yeah.
slightly more specialized equipment. But if you're a singer songwriter, or maybe you're just a dude that wants to program stuff or whatever, uh, you don't need a lot of equipment.
Nope.
If you're just a singer songwriter, you need, well, minimum a one channel interface. If you want to do it live, two channel interface. Well, you can do it one microphone if you really want. But does gear matter? Yes and no.
Awesome. We spent about an hour to arrive at. It depends, mate.
Well, yeah. I this was
But
more about
it
us
does
to
depend.
yeah, this was more about us to hash out about a few different things that we did and how we got to different places and stuff. And yeah, although it was fun, it is very nice to actually have expensive equipment and like the well, let's look at what is in the studio at the minute. We have between the computer is about £400 or £500 just for the computer. Uh, the plugins on that computer, or well, the DAW on the computer was about £300, £200, I think. Uh, and then the plugins on that were about £400, and then all the microphones and stuff, like, you're well into uh probably, I think I counted it up one time just for what was in the studio maybe about a year or two ago. There was 4 or 5 grand of equipment at the time. uh
Yeah.
that was just for the recording side of things. That's not equipment like physical equipment, but including your plugins and all that kind of stuff, and it's really great to be able to do that, to have that stuff there, and I'm obviously really, really grateful to have it, uh, and to be able to do things quickly and easily to a high standard and stuff.
Yeah.
But have I got stuff that has sounded not as good, but close to with minimal equipment? Yes, especially mixing. You can mix quite well and to a very high standard with lesser equipment than, I think, well, especially with plugins and stuff nowadays, than you know than having thousands and thousands of pound of equipment. You can still, well, come on, like, we go back to the Billie Eilish thing, like that album is absolutely unbelievable. I listened to it for, I think I don't even know if I said this on this stream, but I listened to it on headphones a couple of weeks ago, and the production on it is absolutely sickening how good it is. It actually makes you feel physically just. I woke up the next day and looked in the mirror and was just like, "What are you doing wrong? Like, what is your problem?" This guy with a funny name like Phineas can do better than you, and like what are you doing? Like, I know obviously Billy's like, fantastic voice and stuff, but and obviously he must have a good head on him as well for the production that he's coming out with, but like it is absolutely phenomenal what he did for like such little money, and the room they recorded in was like a third the size of my room that I have
Yeah.
here. Probably about the size of a bit bigger than the bathroom in the studio at the minute. Like, and how come when we put guitar amps in there, it doesn't sound that good?
Yeah, what's up with that?
Yeah,
Why are
so
we penalized for being creative?
it's only us that penalizes ourselves. Don't worry.
Sure.
But yeah, does gear matter, Graham?
That depends. Yes and no.
Gear does not and does matter all at the same time. That's her conclusion for this whole thing.
Excellent.
Uh,
Some things just don't have a definite answer.
no, we've came to the conclusion that depending on what you need to do, gear may matter. Depending on other stuff, it may not matter. You may be able to do stuff on a very, very small budget with very minimal gear and get very good results. And you may not be able to get good results with the small amount of gear you have, and you may be forced to buy more gear, especially if you're a bigger band or need drum kits recorded and all that kind of stuff. I think that's the conclusion.
Yeah, that sounds good. That works.
uh, well, this has been absolutely banging. Sorry again for the sort of setup issues that we had. Hopefully that will not happen again. I think it's more or less fixed itself now. Um, I'm looking at here now; it's fine now. I think. But yeah, hopefully that will not happen again. But yes, we have another video coming out Friday. Uh,
Friday.
yeah, so Friday will be. It's basically It's basically to show that you can uh, record a song. It sort of moves on from this topic that we're talking about. It shows that you can record a song with minimal gear, and because it is a very small sort of song, what most two, three, no, three, four instruments, is it? I haven't mixed it yet.
It's one, not counting vocals, it's four.
Okay. So yes. So it basically shows you can do, yeah, take something with less equipment and you basically uh, really nothing. I think some of the stuff's recorded on a phone. But you can then
Yeah.
take that and make it into a song that is going to sound class. I haven't mixed it, but it's going to sound class.
It's gonna
Uh,
sound great.
it's going to sound banging. So that's out on Friday. It'll be on everything from YouTube and Facebook. I don't think it'll be on Instagram. We have a lot of problems with Instagram today, but we may get around it. Thank you very much for watching. I'll say once again, if you're watching on Facebook or even YouTube, if you could please head to our YouTube page. It's youtube.com/Apex Pickups and subscribe to our channel. It helps us out a lot and we'd really appreciate it. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope we helped more people than just Leah Jordan. Thanks very much.